Welcome to The Change, a podcast about the changes in life that can shake, break, and make us. I'm Laura, a 44-year-old writer, podcaster, and mum who has until recently always loved change.
And I'm Kathy, 52-year-old writer, podcaster, and mum. And change is actually my kryptonite. We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia on which this podcast is recorded, and recognise continuing connections to lands, waters and communities.
We pay our respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures and elders past and present. Hey Kathy, how are you?
I'm really good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good. I'm glad it's raining outside. I'm feeling a little bit more relaxed. Not so hot. Yes.
Yeah.
Look, we've got another fantastic guest. I mean, when are they not? But anyway, I think I'll just get on with reading her bio. It's Teresa McNamara, and she's a bit of a legend. And I'm excited to get her on the podcast. We know her through You Beauty, and
Absolutely.
her tutorials on Instagram, where she does some amazing makeup looks. But essentially, she spent the first 50 years of her life focused on other people and feeling like she was just kind of walking through in a bit of a daze. As a single parent with two daughters living in Tasmania, she never thought she'd be able to pursue her passion. She upended her life in her mid-40s. She sold everything she owned and set up a new path. Always a lover of all things makeup and beauty, she kind of assumed she was too old to have a voice, but that changed once she turned 50. She got married, she's had a new career change, and she's also entered the beauty space as a freelance contributor to the Mamma Mia website. And since then, she's been kind of busy building a presence on Instagram. And on her recent 53rd birthday, she launched her YouTube beauty channel, specifically aimed at women her age. She's outspoken and she's filter free in images and in real life. And Teresa aims to bring a real voice to the beauty space. Who said you had to be invisible as you age? Teresa has never felt more seen. We can't wait to talk to her. Welcome, Teresa.
Hi, Teresa. How are you going?
Good, thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much for joining us on The Change. We'd really love to talk to you about, you said you've lived multiple lives and you think that it shows through lots of the things that we've just talked about in your bio. Talk us through those early years and, when you were a young single mum, and what was Teresa like back then?
I was the ultimate wild child. I was partying at 13. Back in the days, women of a
Wow.
certain age, we didn't have photo ID to go out. So I was going out night clubbing at 13. By 15, on top of year 10, I was working 25 hours a week. I was learning how to DJ in the clubs. I was paying board as if I was 18. So I was living like I was 18. With no cares in the world at that time. I had been told at 15, I suffer from multiple chronic and invisible illnesses, and a couple of them are I've got really bad endo, and at 15 I was diagnosed with that and twisted tubes and told the likelihood of me having children was very minimal. So
Gosh, that's quite young to be
Mm.
diagnosed, because you're a similar age to me. I
Yeah,
think I'm
yeah.
52, so and I had endometriosis. Sorry to cut into
No,
your
no, no.
story, but it's incredibly young to
Mm.
be diagnosed, because I wasn't diagnosed until I was 26,
Yeah.
and my mum had a hysterectomy at 24. So we
Yes.
knew it was in the family, but it still wasn't diagnosed in me.
My mother, similar issues. I started my period in year 6.
Hmm.
By year 8, I was put on the pill by the doctor because I was
Wow.
that heavy. I was passing out, falling downstairs,
Hmm.
and all of my life was having periods that would last for 3 months,
Yeah.
and heavy. So when that happened, I had never thought about the possibility of having children, and my life literally revolved around I'd go to school. I'd go straight from school to work every night of the week. I'd leave work, I'd go out partying, and that was a cycle that continued. I call it running away because I grew up in Tasmania, which is where I am now, and
Hmm.
a month after my 19th birthday, ran away to Melbourne, and that same circle kept happening. I was
Hmm.
working, I was partying, I walked into a nightclub. The weekend I got to Melbourne and saw a DJ that I knew. So lived a very fast lifestyle, And that started to change early 20s. I'd been going out for like 7, 8 years, and
Mm.
Yeah.
then my father, he was significantly older than my mother, I'm talking 26 years older than my mother,
Okay.
Mhm.
got sick. And I moved back to Tasmania to spend time with him, knowing that he wouldn't be around long term. He passed away when I was 24 with kidney
Wow.
failure. So he was a renal dialysis patient, had prostate cancer and melanoma when he died.
Goodness.
Um,
Gosh.
a year later, I fell pregnant while I was on the pill.
Oh,
Mm.
wow.
Got sick, was on antibiotics, and I call my daughter my miracle child. She probably saved my life because I was on a very destructive path,
Mm.
Mm.
and once I had her and finding out that it was a daughter and consequently, she is named after my father.
Mm.
He was George, she is Georgia. She changed my life and saved my life.
Wow.
Mm.
My focus I went immediately from being a party animal to going, I don't want to be a statistic. I was very conscious of raising my child on my own, very conscious of wanting her to have a better life, a different life. Like, we came from a very poor background, and that changed everything. So my focus then became giving her the best life and doing what I needed to do. We had no money, like, had absolutely no money. I was always interested in skincare and makeup back then, and that probably really started the depth of my path down caring about my skin. And I was using things like Palmer's stretch mark lotion on my face because I knew that if it would be beneficial to stretch marks. I didn't have the budget, and there wasn't, the array of products out there that there is now. I was slapping that on my face. I
It smells
also
great, that stuff. I
Yeah, I
remember
love
it
it.
well. It's
I love it.
gorgeous. Yeah, it's a lovely
Yeah.
and
smell. Mm.
and I had at 15, I had baked myself in the sun quite literally. I
Mhm.
am a very pale, my background is Scottish and Welsh, and am very pale and freckly, and had slathered cooking oil on my body at
Oh,
Oh.
15
Mm.
and fell
well
asleep from midday to 3 in the sun.
we didn't
Ooh.
use cooking oil up on the mainland. We used baby oil on the
I know this was
mainland.
the next step. I'd used babe, but this was cooking oil,
Oh
3
my
days
goodness.
in
Oh,
December
wow.
in the sun.
Wow.
I was hospitalised.
Oh, goodness.
I was tented.
Oh.
I had suntan marks for 4 years.
Oh my gosh.
I had literally cooked the flesh
Oh,
in
ow.
between my breasts, and
Oh, you poor
cortisone
thing.
ointment. I was that hot that cortisone ointment would crystallise, which I had to have applied 3 times a day.
Oh my
So
Gosh.
goodness.
For
so
anyone that's young and
Yeah.
listening and thinks suntanning is a good idea,
Mm.
seriously, it's not.
I have not been in the sun since, and the hats I wear on my head, thank God I had the foresight to, when I fell asleep, put a towel over my face.
Oh, well, that's the start
Um,
at least. Yeah.
I have been very sun conscious since then.
Mm.
Mm,
I have had to have follow-up. I've had that many precancerous lesions
mm.
burnt off my body. The last go was 55 in one day,
Wow,
Wow, wow,
ouch.
wow.
but
Mm.
I sunscreen religiously. This
Mm.
body has not been burnt since I was 15, and the hats get bigger every year.
Do you have another child as well? So your
Yeah,
daughter
so
Georgia, and then
yes.
after Georgia came.
So when Georgia was 15, I
Mhm.
had met 2 years prior a young woman, Miriam, and she was someone that I'd met. I was doing those for development classes for young women, so like a deportment agency, modelling
Mhm.
Okay.
agency, and they very much focused on self-esteem and
Mm.
confidence. And I met Miriam and saw this young woman really fighting for a better life. Really,
Mhm.
really fighting she'd been in and out of the foster system since she was 7, and through no fault of her own, and she does have a mother, and they love each other dearly, but there are issues there why her mother has struggled to be able to look after her,
Mm.
and through no fault of either of them. And I knew she was meant to go and live somewhere, and this night that I'd seen her dressed up for a dinner when she was 16 in year 10, and looking beautiful and elegant, I found out that the family she was meant to go and live with couldn't have her. And
Oh.
essentially,
Mm.
for year 11 and 12, she'd be crowd surfing, and my heart broke because she was
Mm.
fighting. And I looked at my daughter and I thought, what would happen if something happened to me? Because it was only me.
Mm.
It was all she had. And she looked at me and nodded, and I went, "She can come and live with us." And
Mm.
about 6 weeks later, she did.
Wow.
And that was, I couldn't love her any more than if I gave birth to her. She's
Mm.
now 28 or 29 this year. I can't remember off the top of my head. There's 9 months between her and my daughter.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah. Wow.
so she'll be 29 this year, I believe, and George will be 28. So George and I were mother and daughter, and Miriam made us a family.
That's
And
That's
they
lovely.
are sisters, and I'm so proud of both of them.
Yeah,
fantastic.
incredible.
Kind of moving from your younger part of your life
Mhm.
to when you got married at age 50. And
Yes.
essentially, you kind of started your life all over in many ways. Tell us how that happened and what kind of preceded that big change for you.
Yeah, look, we'll call it life-changing. When I was 37, my mother passed away. So,
Mm,
she was diagnosed, and there were recurrences of breast cancer and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma on the same day.
gosh.
Um, and we were told it was three tumors the size of a grain of rice. We were told she could live 10 years without treatment. She passed away 6 weeks later.
Goodness.
Goodness.
Mm.
Yeah, it was really quick. And we went from that to a week later being told, like from the diagnosis, a week later being told she had 3 months, and a week after that being told she'd be lucky to have 3 weeks.
Mm.
Goodness
Um,
me.
I have an older brother and sister, but my mother and I was the only one that lived there, had discussions with palliative, and I essentially didn't leave her side from that
Mm,
6-week moment. We dropped everything and had discussions, and the night before she passed, we had her last sort of coherent discussion was she was done. So the morning of, it was up to me at 37, to say to the doctors as they came around, "Today's the day."
Mm.
Um, and that happened sort of with both of my parents. They were very fortunate that they got to choose when they
mm,
got to end their life. So whilst we have things like um, voluntary assisted dying, that's been around for a long time, essentially, when
mm,
we're at that stage of life, and both my parents made that decision. So once that happened, it was just me and my daughter in our town at the north of the state, still in Tasmania. Um, and I essentially felt like I was treading water then. She was about to start high school. So my whole life, I've been a gypsy, and change isn't a big deal for me. I have lived all over the country. I am happy. I was just as happy to have all my contents in the back of a car. It doesn't bother me. But when I had my daughter, I planted roots. Once mum went and Georgia was in high school and then Mim came along, my job was to get them through high school and to send them out into the world.
mm.
And they went out into the world and went off to uni, and um, what happened next was I went,
So,
"Okay."
were you still in Tasmania at the
Yeah.
time? Yeah,
Yeah,
you
so I was
stayed
on
in
the north. Yep.
Tasmania with it. Yep.
I stayed on the northwest coast in a small town called Burnie,
Mhm.
and, literally the week that they left, I thought about what I wanted from my future. And I had met what I call on New Year's, the following New Year's Eve, I met my soulmate through my best male
Mm,
friend was living with her. Like, this is a female soulmate, not, I call her one of the loves of my life, and that she's not my romantic interest, but she's my soulmate. We connected so greatly that I ended up moving down within 12 weeks.
mm,
I lived next door to her for the first 18 months. And that I knew I had to leave Burnie, being a very small town, being like country, rural,
mm,
Mm.
socio-economic. I wanted to find love, and I wasn't going to find it there. So I very specifically went, "I've raised my children. I've done my part. Now it's me time." And met my husband a few months later through work. We became really great friends, and I knew one day looking at him that he was my person.
And
mm,
how old were you when you met? Sorry.
We were, what am I, 53 now? I was 45.
mm,
Wow. Yeah.
Um, he was 39, so he's younger than I am. And yeah, he was just it for me. He was not who I was looking for. He's not who I ever would have picked. He
Mhm.
is my calm in the storm, and I orbit around him and he keeps me calm. He's very
Mm.
different to me. And that happened. And then it all just sort of culminated. So 2 years ago, we got married, and 2 weeks later, I had a complete career change. I went from an advertising background into tourism and hospitality, still in a sales front. So that started 2 weeks later. And then a few months after that, I had a post in the You Beauty Facebook group go viral, and
Mm.
that led to then this whole new career that's opened up, which
Mm.
I didn't expect would ever happen over 50, and I didn't expect being able to do from Tassie.
Something that really stood out to us, and part of why we really knew that we wanted to interview you, was that you said you've never felt less invisible at
Mhm.
50. And that particularly resonates with me because I actually find the opposite. I mean, I'm sort of starting to come out of the other side of that a little bit, but just tell us more a little bit about that,
Mm.
that how you feel less invisible.
Yeah, it was really interesting, and I probably came to that conclusion after reading your article, because I
Mhm,
remember
mhm.
reading it and going, "I feel so the opposite of how
Mm,
you were feeling." And I think it was because all of up until that point, I had been Georgia and Miriam's mum. You know,
mm,
I had been the person doing this. There was no focus on me. Going into this, since I turned 50, there's I think it took until I was 50 to be comfortable in who I am as a person
mhm,
and to not judge myself. That all just went out the window. The doors that writing for Mamma Mia has opened means that I think one of the things I'm known for is that I don't use filters.
mm,
I don't have at this point, and I'm not against them, I don't have fillers, I don't have Botox. Again, I'm not against them. There could come the day that I walk in the door with my arms spread and say, "Load me up." But
mhm, mhm,
I put that out there. I was a nerdy, bullied, self-conscious of my looks and
mm,
everything child. I was compared to my sister and to other people. And at this stage in my life, I don't feel like I need to justify who I am to anyone else. I don't need to make
mm,
myself quieter or smaller for anyone else. And
mm,
my face has been out there, not just filter free, but the amount of photos that have been out into the community of no makeup, like, and close, like I zoom in
mm,
on this is what pores look like because that's normal. Like, don't
mm,
beat yourself up. This is normal. This is what a real 50-year-old, now 53 face looks like with crow's feet. That's normal. My last article, I had an allergic reaction from trying products, and I looked like the winky faced emoji. My face was that
mhm,
swollen. And that went out, and that goes out to a big audience. And
mm,
I think it's really important to share in this space what a real face looks like at 53. And the feedback that I get has been so incredible that I, I, like I said, it's put me out there. It's reaching an audience, and
mm.
I've never felt more visible or exposed, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
Mm,
it's
I love
funny that
that.
you say how, like this is what a 53-year-old face looks like. I guess when we were growing up, or I'm trying to think of when the golden, what was it? The
Golden Girls,
golden
and at
girls.
our age,
Yes.
the
Yeah, and you kind of look at the pictures of, Blanche and
mhm,
Betty White and, Sophia the mum and all of those, and they're like they looked like my grandmothers,
yes,
but they were portraying women of 53, 50,
absolutely.
like, I mean, obviously Sophia wasn't, she was
Mm,
the mum, but she was the rest of them were portraying women our age, but they
mm,
had grey hair and they had lots of wrinkles. And I certainly looked at them and thought, but
mm,
hang on, they're not 50, they're like the same age as my grandparents. And
Mm,
now I look at them and go, well, hang on, if
We're
that's
older than
what
I'm older than some of
yes.
them.
Well,
Yeah.
we're actually older than the age they were portraying,
Yeah.
but the actresses were 10 the only actress that was younger than the age she was portraying was actually the mum.
Mhm.
So the rest of them were at least 10 years older than the age that they were portraying on screen. So it's no wonder that we're all confused about what we're meant to
Mm.
look like at a certain age. And but
Because we see that or we
mm,
see J-Lo, like,
yeah,
Yeah, there's no in between. That's
no.
right. And it's
and
yeah.
sorry, I was just gonna say there's no action, like, there's nothing that says I should look this way or I should look that way, that's I guess that's the other thing that we need to, we spoke with Jacinth Bassett around, what women look like.
Mm,
And we all look a different way at a different age, and we are who we are at that
Mm.
age. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think that the problem with the media probably back in the 80s and just forever really, and the portrayal of women has always been once you were kind of over that 40, you were just old. So that's why the Golden
mm,
Girls are just kind of grouped together as this kind of collection of grandmotherly types
Mm,
when they're actually quite diverse in age.
mhm,
And if they were grouped together now, it'd be quite weird to group, 50
mm,
year old with a 80-year-old. Like it's not weird, but they're two different generations and they should
mhm,
never really have been kind of clustered under that Golden Girls title. It was just a
mhm, mhm,
strange thing to do, and yeah, it's very dated, and thank God we've kind of moved away from that and can see that age 53 can look myriad ways, and Teresa, you're, absolutely helping us to see that, and we thank you for it.
mm,
And
I have daughters that are in their 20s that have grown up in the Kardashian-Jenner era where
mm,
everything is nipped, tucked, photoshopped. So it's really important. And both of these women, like my girls who are, heading towards between 25 and 30, they rarely wear makeup and I've brought them up with a strong sense of
mm,
self. And
mm,
I never wanted them to compare themselves with somebody else. So that's really important that
mm,
I can push that out further. I think it's a really strong message to have. We're so continually comparing ourselves to photoshopped images and you
mhm,
see anyone on forums, anyone that shares photos that's asking a question on the various groups that I'm in, will the first thing they do is apologise for, sorry for the unfiltered skin, but can somebody explain this? Don't apologise for it.
mm,
The fact that we have to apologise for what is real skin
mm,
is
mm.
heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's so true, and it's interesting that you're part of an industry in a way that is very youth centric, and I think it's
Mm.
good. You're disrupting it. You're being a disruptor by just being in it.
Hoping to be.
mhm,
And
mhm,
kind of, yeah, showing many other women of every age, what skin and makeup can do for us, what it can look like, which I think is really important so that we do have a very broad representation. That's what we need. We kind of heard that you are launching a YouTube channel and I think it's already launched. And we're kind of predicting that 2024 is going to be a big year for you. So tell us about this change and what's next for you.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. It's consistently over probably the last 4 years. I have quite often, like on my Instagram and in different groups, shared my makeup or my
mm,
skin. And the biggest question that I would get asked is, what's your skincare routine? Which changes all the time. Or, geez, I wish I could have you in my back pocket to do my makeup. How do you do it? I'm trying to do this. And so that constant ask had been something that I had thought about growing on it. And so what happened was, as my profile has slowly grown, it's then led into more and more questions. And I started doing some lives on Instagram and it just
mm,
became a natural progression. So once I decided that, look, I think that I've got a space that can be filled because I watch a lot of YouTube videos and there are tutorials and there are channels that are designed for our age group. However, there is not a lot of representation in Australia of a woman our age.
mm,
That so I thought I'm going to try and fill that space and try and keep it real and that ended up becoming, well, let's launch on my 53rd birthday, which was just under a couple of weeks ago now. So
Mhm.
it's a slow progression. It's a very big learning curve I'm in at the moment. It's aimed at beginners that don't know the very basics. What brush do I use for this? What I want to do a skincare routine because I've only done something pretty basic. What can I mix? I feel
Mm.
like I need a science degree to understand ingredients, or my eyelids are hooded. Well, so are mine, and they sit on my eyelashes. So it's about beginners over 40, over 50,
Mm.
and just rolling that out. And I've set myself a goal of set a series of goals over 12 months as to how I want that to look and to scale. And it's just getting that in place now. Like I work 40 hours a day during my day job, and this at this point in time is about 30 hours a week on top of that, which is fine. And I'm just hoping that I can continue to grow and help people, because it is really about, I have an absolute passion for skincare and makeup. I I know my skin so well. It is, I always say to people, really get to know your skin, like touch it, poke at it, feel it. What I put on my face one day may be different than the next day. And there are reasons for that. So I've spent probably 30 years getting to understand that about my skin. And I think that I can help somebody else take a bit of a shortcut with that.
Yeah.
Good on you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, and there's obviously after that, like if this goes the way that I want it to, and I'm look, I'm not expecting to become some,
Mhm.
you know, crazy influencer. I'm pretty realistic about that, but there are other end goals that I have in place for that as well, as things that I want to do. And it's always been a goal, probably for the last 4 years, to look at. I know what my ultimate skin serum would be, for example. I Frankenstein mine and have been trialing things over the last few years, and I eventually one day I'd like to launch a skincare serum. Like that's the
Wow.
ultimate goal.
Mm.
So it's all goal after goal after goal.
Mm. Well, that's
Oh,
the way to do it, isn't it?
Yeah,
Keep on keeping on
absolutely.
with those. Yeah.
yeah.
And such an exciting time for you.
I'm really lucky in that my husband's super supportive of it.
Mm.
The last few weeks, I've made dinner once. He's
Mhm.
done everything else. He's mopped the floors, the housework, everything.
As
He
he should.
Yeah, yeah, and he's like that in any case. I'm really lucky in that mental and weight load is distributed 70-30 in my favor. Like
Mhm, mhm.
he does the most at home without fail, but I certainly couldn't do it without the support that he is giving me with this, with my frustrations.
Oh, that sounds fabulous.
Yeah. That's the perfect scenario.
Something that we ask all of our guests is how do you feel about the change, aka menopause or perimenopause, wherever you might be at the moment?
I have a really interesting relationship with it, in that I find it funny because, as I'd mentioned, I have endometriosis. I also have polycystic ovaries, I have arthritis, and I have fibromyalgia. So I've dealt with chronic pain and what that brings with it all of my life. And when I was in my early 40s, I had an uterine ablation. So
Mhm,
I haven't had a period since my early 40s. So
mhm,
I've had no idea where I've been in it.
mhm,
I think I'm through it now because, oh, the hot flushes, oh, the mentality of it all. But I haven't gone through probably quite the extreme that other people do. I lost my mum when she was 60. And as I get closer
mm,
to that age, that's been a really 60 for me is terrifying for no other reason than my goal is to get to 61.
mm,
So I want to get older. I think that I'm through menopause now. I'm pretty much through the hot flushes. Everything else is just like it's been pretty breezy for me, I think. I don't think I've been affected as badly as some people.
Mm.
So I was happy to go finally get through period, finally get through menopause and be on the other side. And now I'm looking forward to, I'm 53. In 7 years' time, my mum died.
Mm.
I want
mm,
to get to 73 and 83. And part of that is I wake up every day and there's a new line or there's more greys, and
Mhm.
I love seeing character in people's faces. I find lines, and it probably comes from my background of having done photography. I find beauty in character in faces, and if you've got no character to your face, it doesn't tell me anything about a person. So menopause for me, and you'd mentioned this on a previous, I think on a previous episode about the crone era
Mm.
and that terminology. My God, I'm embracing my crone era. I love it. I love it. It's, I am not a crone with a wart on my nose and a witch's broom. I am one of the sexy witches from Practical Magic, and that's how I'm going into my 50s and towards 60. It's yeah, I've never been happier in my life than what I am right now.
Oh, that's amazing.
It is. Well,
Wow.
yeah, she was awesome. Teresa is a very positive person who's been through a lot, would you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So much. And really struck me that when you talk to someone like Teresa, whose mum passed away when she was only 60, which is like
Mm,
so young,
so young,
it is really timely to remember that aging is a privilege.
100%.
And how we look as we age is less of an issue when you realize that, yeah,
Yeah,
it's such a privilege.
of course. And I think that's the thing, is that we can get a little bit too caught up in our own faces and we need to look outside. I know
Hmm.
I do. I spend way too much time that is unnecessary, worried about, my jowls or whatever.
Hmm.
And thinking, and I should be thinking more about, yes, the bigger picture. And I do try. And I think it's helpful to talk to someone like Teresa who reminds me of that, and other people, I'm sure. But I think what's really interesting too on that subject is that Teresa is someone who is working in the beauty space. And as she mentioned, referencing people like the Kardashians and
Hmm.
makeup artists and people that wear a lot of makeup and focus on their skin and their face, it's very unique that she is doing that while also maintaining her kind of natural look and talking
Yeah.
about aging in a way that is natural and trying to represent women of in their 50s, which I think is great.
And being a disruptor, as she
Yeah.
said, like
Mm,
really trying to disrupt that space and say, this is what you can look like. It's
yeah.
not the only way to look, but
No.
it's how she wants to do it for now, which is really great.
Yeah, she's really living kind of Jacinth Bassett, who we spoke to on a previous episode, the I Look My Age campaign, which was all about representing women looking their age and not being looking good or looking young for their age. Teresa's just out there. She's living it. She's doing it. She's putting on makeup and skincare and letting other women of every age, look at her face and go, this is it. And she does it so well as well. Like, she looked
Yeah.
beautiful on the screen. I wish you could see her. She always looks immaculate. Go check out. We'll put all the links to Teresa's Instagram and YouTube in the show notes so you can go and see what Teresa's up to, because it's really fascinating. And she's doing great things and remaining super positive, which we love.
And true to herself, which is
Mm.
also awesome. Thanks for listening to The Change, a fully independent podcast. Whether you're seeking inspiration, curious about change, or just here for the great banter, we'd love you to make The Change your new go-to podcast.
And even better, send us your voice notes or questions about change. We'll use them on the show. Email us at changepod2023@gmail.com or DM us on Instagram at _change_pod. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram for more on The Change.